Everyone, I hope you're well. You did it. You're in your last week of school, last full week of school, last week that I'm really requiring anything. So you just have to kind of work on this final project that I'm going to kind of walk through, okay? So I sent out the actual project, or it's in Teams, so you can access it there, and you're going to be submitting it there as well, okay? So on this project, you have a few main parts. You have your absolute values. You have two absolute values that you have to graph, two quadratic functions you have to graph, one piecewise function with two parts to that piecewise function, and then describing what the logo means, okay? The rubric also on Teams, okay, so you can access that there. So this is what I'm looking for, and I will be grading these for accuracy, so be sure to really pay attention to detail, make sure it's really neat. Use a ruler. If you don't have a printer, you can just use graph paper and clearly draw in an X and Y axis so you can draw it on there, okay? So you don't need a printer. I provided a graph in case you want it. Otherwise, just use a piece of graph paper again, but it should be really neat, okay? So on my thing, again, this is due on Friday. I wrote my equations here, right? So I wrote an equation and then I graphed it on my paper. Wrote my quadratic equations, graphed it on my paper, wrote my piecewise. And when I said piecewise with two parts, right, here's part one with the piecewise with the domain, and part two of the piecewise with the domain. And I have a description here, okay? So here is my project. This is a sample. So you cannot use this as your final project. If you submit this one, you won't get any credit for it, okay? So this is my final project. I have two absolute values, so this is one absolute value right here. Here's my second absolute value. Notice I labeled A1, and that A1 will correspond with my equation on my other piece of paper. A2, here's my other absolute value. It's going to correspond with my equation on my paper, okay? Then I have two quadratics here, the yellow one and the orange one. Again, I graphed those here. I wrote the equation for each one on my paper, label Q1, Q2, okay? And then this is my piecewise function right here, P1, P2. Notice how neat my graph is. It's very nice. I did it first in pencil, but very lightly, and then drew over it in marker, making it look really colorful and, you know, as good art as I can do, okay? And then I did a little description, which I'll read to you. The logo represents beautiful mountain sunrises that you only get to see after a long hike or backpack. Okay, so it doesn't have to be anything crazy, pretty simple. Just want to see that you got the basic skills from the semester, really, right? And these were some of those basic skills. Now this is the bare minimum of what you need to do to get credit for the final project. Now, if you want some extra credit, you can get some extra credit by graphing an extra absolute value function and writing that equation on there. If you choose to do the extra credit, be sure you're writing your equation somewhere, graphing it, labeling it, so I can grade it, right? If there's just an absolute value there, absolute value graph on your graph, and I have no way to check if your equation matches your graph, you're not going to get credit for that, okay? Same thing, you could draw an extra quadratic function, but again, you need to write your equation somewhere, label it, so I can grade it. Extra piecewise, setting the absolute value equation equal to a constant, so maybe setting it equal to 0, showing all your work, solving it. Setting the quadratic equal to 0 and solving, okay? This can happen with both absolute values, okay? So you can get a point for each one. And then a very detailed and extravagant logo that could also get you an extra point. But again, if you're doing any of these extra credit things, you need to have your work clearly labeled on a sheet of paper that you turn in with this whole material, okay? So then, once you're all done, maybe you do just the bare minimum final project, or maybe you do the final project with the extra credit. You're going to scan or take a photo of this page, And then any extra work that you have, in case maybe you did some of the extra credit, you're going to scan all those things and put it on Teams for me to grade. This is due the 19th, but honestly, you, depending on, how much you do, if you do kind of the bare minimum, I think it's a one-day activity. Probably finish it today, you'd be done. If you're doing more, you want to make sure it's all good. I double check everything. It may take a couple more days. So that's the final project. If you have questions, please email me. Otherwise, I look forward to looking at them and grading them on Teams on the 19th. Great. Have an awesome summer. Sorry I didn't get to say goodbye in person. Hopefully, if we're back in school in the fall, you guys will stop by and say hi. All right. Hope you guys are well. Bye.